Today, we're going to test if Preppy Kitchen's cinnamon sugar apple cider air fryer donuts are as good as they look. And who doesn't love a donut? So I saw John over at Preppy Kitchen make these apple cider donuts the other day, and I got to give them a try. So we're going to start with some apple cider. You're going to need 2.5 cups of this, and we're going to reduce this down to 2/3 of a cup, just on high heat in any saucepan you got. We're just really trying to concentrate these flavors. I had to give this recipe a try because who doesn't love donuts? An air fryer sounds so much easier than deep frying or baking or any other medium, but I just want to see, can these honestly be as good? So here's what you're left with. This probably took 10 or 15 minutes to cook down, but this is just concentrated apple cider flavor. You got that 2/3 of a cup, and now we're ready to move on to the next, which is the wet side of the ingredients, which we're going to start with 1 egg, full egg, and then 1 egg, just the egg white. Let these sit out at room temperature for a little bit so they're not ice cold. Then add in that apple cider that you've let cool down a bit. We're going to add in 1/4 cup of white sugar. We're going to add in 1/3 of a cup of brown sugar, light brown sugar, and really pack that in there. John said pack it in real good, not loose brown sugar. Add that in. We're going to add in half a stick of butter to this, and also a teaspoon worth of vanilla. Add that all, mix it all up. Obviously, if you want a more detailed version of this recipe, go check out Preppy Kitchen. I'll link that down below. I'm just giving these a try. This is not my recipe. We're just testing it out. Once you have that all nice and mixed, move that off to the side, and we're going to start with the dry ingredients, which is going to be 360 grams of all-purpose flour. To that, we're going to add 1 3/4 teaspoons of baking powder. We're going to add 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and then we're going to add cinnamon, nutmeg, and about 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. Any other kind of wintry flavors you want to add to this, go ahead and dump right in. Give that a good old mix, and then once you have that nice and evenly mixed, we're going to add the wet ingredients to this, and we're going to mix these together, but do not over mix them. I'm just going to kind of create like a folding motion going around the outsides, incorporating the flour, making sure all the extra wet spots get flour and come together. That's kind of what you're looking for. We're getting to that wet sand phase. Do not overwork it though. Once you start to see all the flour disappear right around there, that's as far as I'm going to take this. We're just going to cover it in cling film and throw this into the fridge and let this cool down for a minimum of 4 hours per John, but even longer if you can let it. So now we're ready to make the donuts. I let this sit for probably about 6 hours, which is great. You can make dinner, do whatever else you want in your life, and just have these ready for whenever you need them. Pour them out onto a nice little floured surface. Get your hands nice and floured so they don't stick. And now we're going to pat this down to about a 1/2 inch thickness. And then we're going to punch these out with ring molds, and you're just going to air fry them. Very simple from this point out. As you can see, we're using a 3-inch ring mold here. I do not have the smallest ring mold, which I did not realize, and you're going to notice that moment of panic in a second here when I grab this one, and it is absolutely massive. So I tried to figure out what I wanted to do, and I wound up using a melon baller, which actually worked really well. It didn't make the cleanest cut, but once you cut those out, we're just going to throw these onto a piece of parchment paper on a baking sheet, and then while you're doing it, I like to keep them in the fridge. It'll just keep them in shape better. They're basically just butter and other liquids, so they will get soft over time. But look at that. That's a perfect little donut. And once you have those, we're going to melt some butter. That's the other half of the stick. We're going to take a bunch of sugar. These exact measurements are in his site, but you can make whatever combo you want here. A little bit of cinnamon. You have cinnamon sugar here. Mix it together with that little whisk, Babish style. I also did a test run like he recommends. So I cooked up 1 donut and made sure the temperatures were right before I did this. I kind of followed his temperatures. There they are after sitting in the fridge for a little while, but I preheated this at 400 for about 3 or 4 minutes. We added a little avocado neutral oil spray. We put a little in the donuts also. And now I cooked these at 375 degrees, which I think for this style air fryer, he recommended a little hotter. But I cooked those. Here we are right at about 4 or 5 minutes. They're getting golden brown, but they're not burning. They're doing exactly what you want. I flipped them. I cooked them for another 3 minutes or so. So right around the 7 or 8 minutes, which is what he recommended. And now threw them out on a drying rack here to cool down a bit. That's what you're looking for. They're craggly, they're nice, they've risen a good amount, and now we're just going to paint these with butter. Who doesn't like a little bit of butter? John says this will give them a little bit of richness. It also is that glue for the cinnamon sugar to stick to, but coat them real well. I wouldn't just drop it in the butter because that might over soak them, but then just drop that directly into your cinnamon sugar, spoon it over the top. And that's all you need to do. These are now ready to enjoy. You could let them cool down another minute or two. I probably let them cool for about 5 minutes also before I started this whole process of the butter and the sugar. But if there's any bald spots, just tap them with a little butter. And then just eat, enjoy. Let's cut these open. Let's look at the cross section and let's see if this is actually a great way to make donuts. Right off the bat though, they definitely look a little dense. First taste impressions, I think this is more similar to like a cake, like a coffee cake. I'm probably hypercritical because I live in the Northeast. Donuts are god here, so is it good? Yes. Does it taste like a donut? Not really. This is kind of more cake-like. It was still delicious. It's not dry. It has plenty of flavor and moisture, but I don't think this is a donut.